We begin today the Gemara on Daf Gimel, the second line from the top of the Yamud. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Eid Zaymim. When it comes to Eidim Zaymim, so here he says, he's speaking about one Eid Zaymim that was found to be saying false testimony. Mishalem lefi chalkai. So he pays his portion, his percent of the payment. Okay, so the Gemara now explains what are we talking about. The lashon that Rav uses is Eid Zaymim, the singular term, but the Gemara will explain different phases of understanding what it means to say. Sagt the Gemara, "My mishalem lefi chalkai." How do we understand this? What does it mean that he pays his portion? If you're going to say that, what is it speaking about? A regular case of Eidim Zaymimin, where let's say there were two Eidim that came and testified that so and so owes $500, and then a second group of Eidim come and say, "No, you're Eidim Zaymimin. Imano Yisem b'ma complaining, you're lying." So what happens in such a case? What Rav is saying is that the high mishalem palge, the high mishalem palge, that the two Eidim Zaymimin, when they have to pay kasha zama, they get punished to pay what they intended to make the other person pay. So not each one pays 500, each one pays their part, 250 and 250. If that would be the pshat of what Rav is saying, but he doesn't have to say this. Tanina, it says this clearly in the Mishnah later on. It says mishalshin b'mamain, that when it comes to the punishment of kasha zama regarding money, so this is divided. Now the taich of the word mishalshin, Rashi says either the word mishalshin here means that Bezdin is a shalish. Shalish literally means like a third party or like a broker. In other words, Bezdin over here divides the payment between the two Eidim. Or mishalshin would be if there were three Eidim. So then you divide it into three, that each Eid pays a third of this payment of kasha zama. And that's by money. But ve'ein mishalshin b'malkis that is. But when you have to give the einish of malkis to the Eidim Zaymimin, so then you don't divide the lashes of the malkis. Each one of the Eidim Zaymimin gets the full 39 lashes. So it's a clear Mishnah that when it comes to the payment of money, you divide this. So why does Rav have to say this again? Ella says the Gemara, the case over here is Kagain, the Itzam Chad Minayu. Rav is talking about a case where only one of the Eidim Zaymimin was found to be saying false testimony. And he himself has the einish of kasha samam. And what Rav is saying is the mishalem palgedidei, that he pays the einish of kasha samam is half. That he pays only half his part of what he said false testimony. But the question is, this is not even true. Umi mishalem. Does he pay in such a case? Is there an einish of kasha samam? B'hatanya, we learned in the Braise, ein eid zaymim mishalem mamayin. The eid zaymim does not pay the money for the punishment of kasha samam ad sheyizumu shneim, unless both of the Eidim are found to be saying false testimony. The din of kasha zama does not apply when one Eid is found to have said false testimony. So it can't be talking about such a case. Okay, so the Gemara tries another pshat. Amar Rave, so Rave says, the case Rav was talking about is, ba'omer, when the Eid himself comes and admits and says, Eidus sheker he'adati, I said false testimony. He himself comes and admits and says this. In such a case, when he himself is coming and admitting, so according to the pshat that it says here in Rashi, this is the way the Bachir and other Mefarshim explain, it's not really an einish of kasha zama, but the fact that he said this false testimony and he made someone pay money that he didn't have to pay, so this is what's called a mazik. He's really a mazik, not really a direct mazik b'yadayim, but this is a mazik b'medina de garmi, when you're directly causing someone a damage. So in such a case, when this aid caused this direct damage, Garmi, he's going to have to pay for this damage, his portion of the damage that he caused. That's what it's talking about over here.
He actually caused the damage.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Correct.
Is it an union of chatzi, or is the union is that these two Eidim Zaymimin, we don't care how you split it. You got to get 500 back. What, when you cost the 500 times, so they might say, okay, I'll do 300, you do 200.
If they agree between each other, they can be michael to each other, whatever they want. Right. But as far as the false testimony that they said,
the 5 has to come from them.
5 has to come from them. But as far as the false testimony that they said, it's half and half. Okay, so the Gemara now is suggesting that what happened here, that the Eid said, Eid is sheker yadati. So as I explained Rashi's pshat, Taisus has a different pshat. Other Rishonim say that later they were mazim them. But in the Pirish of the Gemara Kipshutai, the way Rashi learns it is that the Eid himself is coming and being Maida Eid Sheker Adati.
Only one
but
Eid.
Yeah, one Eid is coming and saying this. But the Gemara asks on this, Kol Kimine, is this Eid believed to come and change the Eidus that he said and then come and say, oh, I said that what I said was a lie? He's not believed to change his edus. Kivin shehigid shuv eina chayzer magid. The rule regarding edus is that once the edim say their edus, they can't come back and change their edus, retract their edus. Eina chayzer magid. You can't come back and say anything else, anything different. Right? So let's learn that from a pasuk. You have one chance to say the Haggadah Edus. You can't come back and change that. So over here, if the aid comes in and says, "Oh, I lied," why should we? The Torah says we don't believe when he comes and says he lied. So that can't be the case. Elo. So therefore, the Gemara says another pshat. The case here must be as follows: But Omer, this one aid Zaymim comes and says, "He'adnu." We testified v'huzamnu bebezdin pliny, and we were already found to be Eidim Zaymim in another bezdin. And now this one aid is coming and admitting to this. He's being maided that he was already found to be Eidim Zaymimin. And what Rav is saying is that when one aid comes and admits this, he has to pay his portion. Says the Gemara, Keman. So if that's the pshat, according to whose opinion is this going? The like Rabbi Akiva. This is not like Rabbi Akiva, which was mentioned here at the end of Beis Amid Beis. Why? Because the Ikar Rabbi Akiva. If it's Rabbi Akiva's opinion, Ha'amar, what did Rabbi Akiva say? Af Eina Mishalem al Piyatzmai. Rabbi Akiva says that when it comes to Eidim Zaymimin, the payment of Kashazamam is a knas. It's not a regular money payment. And by a knas, you're never obligated to pay knas based on your own admission. It has to be through the bezdin. The lashon of the pasuk is Asher Yashin Elohim, that after the bezdin is mechayev you. So if so, this pshat is not like Rabbi Akiva.
So by Eidim Zaymimin, there's no charoto.
There's no, they can't. Well, in a case where they were already found to be Eidim Zaymimin by another bezdin, and now they didn't pay it, and now they go to another bezdin and they admit to this, they're not going to pay by that admission because they're being made to a knas. Elo, says the Gemara, the case here is as follows. This is what I was talking about. But Omer, this one aid comes along and says, He'adnu v'huzamnu bebezdin pliny. We said Eidos, then we were found to be Eidim Zaymimin in another bezdin, and even more. Here the Gemara adds another detail. V'chuyavnu mamin. We were already obligated to pay money in that bezdin. Right? So not only we were found to be Eidim Zaymimin, but that bezdin already was mechayev us to pay. And so now the bezdin was already mechayev. So not that he was maiden, he's being maiden now that he was found to be Eidim Zaymimin. It was already upsaked in from that other bezdin that he's chayev to pay. So in such a case, over here, even Rabbi Akiva, there's no issue of that you're paying based on your admission. No, you're not. You're paying because that other bezdin was already mechayev you to pay. So it's Yashin Elohim. So now, in this case, Rav is coming to say that this aid that's coming and admitting to this pays his portion. What's the chiddush? Why shouldn't he pay? He's being maided that bezdin was already mechayev. So the Gemara explains because Sol Kedai Tachamine, I would think to say Kivin de Lachavre Lematzi Mechayev. When this one aid admits to this, he's not going to now, with that admission, obligate the other aid to pay that's not admitting to this. A person could be made on himself. Haidah is baldin. You made it for yourself to be mechayev yourself to pay that. You're mechayev yourself to pay. That's the din of haidah is baldin. Kamei edom dami you mechayev yourself, but not for someone else. So for your friend, he's not going to be chayev. So I would think that if we're not believing you to be mechayev your friend, iyonami loy mechayev. So then that means that we're not accepting his haidah, and he also shouldn't have to pay even his part that he's being made. Kamash Malan, and therefore Rav comes to say that even though the other doesn't have to pay, but this say that was made on his percent, he does have to pay for what he was made that he was already nischayev in another bezdin.
But both of them were mechayev based in.
Correct, but the other one is not being made.
He doesn't have to money, so he's already been.
If that other bezdin is here and the edim that were there by the other bezdin come forward, it's fine. But that other bezdin is not here. The edim that were there, the other bezdin are not here. So the only source we have now is this one eid that's being made. So he could be mechayev himself, not the other eid. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, another case of edim zaymimin meidin anu es ish pliny. Edim come and testify about an individual shegirish isishtay, that he divorced his wife, and v'leinasan la ksubasa, but he didn't pay her the ksuba money. Okay, so now before we see the details here of this Gemara, the Mishnah and the Gemara, what is included in a ksuba? So a ksuba is if a person divorces his wife before he dies, then he has to pay her a ksuba. That's either 200 if she's a basula or 100 if she's an almana. And besides that, you have also in the ksuba properties, monies, possessions that the wife brings into the marriage, and she wants to write it into the ksuba that the husband takes responsibility that if he dies or she gets divorced, she will get back that exact value of what those properties are at the day when she got married. that's called nichsei tzoyim barzel, that the husband takes responsibility to return it to her. Then there's other properties that a wife could bring into the marriage that she does not want to write into the ksuba, and it's hers. And while they're married, the husband gets to use the properties, all paytas, all profits are his, but the property itself belongs to her. That's what's called nichsei melug. Okay, so now here we're talking about the ksuba, that's the payment of the ksuba, the nichsei tzoyim barzel that's in the ksuba. Okay, so now this person comes along and says a false testimony that this person divorced his wife and he didn't pay the ksuba. So with this kind of eidos, he wanted to cause this man a loss, that he would have to pay this ksuba. But now the thing is, if we would want to give the einish of kasha zomam, can you say now that these eidim have to pay the full value of that ksuba, that they wanted to cause this man a loss, that he would have to pay this ksuba? So the Mishnah says no, because today or tomorrow, it's possible that he would have to anyways pay this ksuba. He may die before his wife, and then she would have to get that payment of the ksuba, or he may divorce her, and she would anyways be getting that payment of the ksuba from him. So it's not a case where you could say that the Eidim definitely caused this loss of payment of the ksuba. There's a chance that this man Taka would anyways in the future have to pay this ksuba. So how do we evaluate the loss that these Eidim Zaymimin tried to cause this person now, when they said that he divorced his wife and didn't pay the ksuba? And it's not true. Says the Mishnah, Oimden, we estimate how much would someone be ready to pay to buy off the payment of this ksuba from this woman? That if she becomes a widow or she gets divorced, what happens then? Then that payment of the ksuba, instead of going to her, will go to this buyer. How much is the person ready to pay for this? That he should be the one that will get the payment of this ksuba. Now, he's not definitely going to get it. But if she dies first, then Yidishena Baila. Then the husband inherits this ksuba, or whatever properties are designated for the payment of the ksuba. The husband will get it, and then the buyer will get nothing. So let's say the ksuba has a value of $1,000, and you're buying the rights to collect that ksuba in the event that the woman is the one that has the rights to collect it. So let's say a person would be ready to pay $600 for it, $700, but he's not. Obviously, you're not paying full price for this ksuba, because not necessarily will you be getting that rights to collect the ksuba. This is what we evaluate regarding the loss of what these Eidim Zaymimin tried to cause this man over here, by saying that he divorced his wife and didn't pay the ksuba. Okay, so now the Gemara asks on this, Keitzad Shomen, how exactly do we estimate, do we evaluate what kind of loss these Eidim Zaymimin tried to cause? So as Rashi explains, the reason the Gemara is asking this question, it said clearly in the Mishnah, what you evaluate. You evaluate what a person would pay to buy off the rights of collection of the ksuba from the woman. But that can't be the simple pshat of the Mishnah cannot be what you estimate here. Why? Because these Eidim Zaymimin came to say that the husband didn't pay his ksuba. They were coming to cause him a loss, that he would have to pay the ksuba. They weren't coming to cause her a loss. When you learn the Mishnah, it says you estimate how much she could sell the rights of her ksuba, which means her value that she has in the ksuba, but that's not what these Eidim Zaymin came to cause, a loss to her, that she would lose out her rights to collect that ksuba. Not at all. They came to cause him a loss, that he would have to pay the ksuba, even if it wasn't true, he never divorced his wife. So then the question is, how do we understand what it says here in the Mishnah, that you estimate this value of loss that these Eidim Zaymin tried to cause the man?
It's the same loss.
No, it's not the same loss. It's different. Okay, let's see. I'll explain. So the Gemara explains. Omer Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda says, Bebal. What's actually estimated over here is the loss that the husband has in this, what he could have sold the rights of the ksuba to. So as Rashi explains, what this means is, just like the woman, the wife, she can sell her rights of the ksuba to someone, if she would then be able to collect it. The husband can do the same thing as well. The husband can come and sell his rights that there are to this ksuba. There are properties that are meshubah to the ksuba. All right. So now, in the case where she will die first, what happens to those properties? So those properties, the husband can sell someone and say, these properties that are meshubah to my wife's ksuba, if the wife dies first, you will get these properties. So just like she can sell her rights to the ksuba, the husband as well, as I just explained, can sell the rights of those properties. Now Rashi explains even more that the rights that the husband has to these properties of the ksuba that he could sell to someone is much more valuable than what a woman could sell. When a woman sells the rights of the ksubah that she may collect one day, she doesn't have those properties in her possession yet. It's by the husband at this point. And then if the husband dies first or the husband divorces her, she'll then have to go ahead and collect it. It's a hassle to then go and get that. The husband has these properties, it's by him now, and if the wife dies first, then the buyer will get those properties right away. So the power the husband has to sell those properties of the silver for a buyer is a much greater value, right? So therefore, what Rav Chisda is saying is that you estimate bebal the loss that the Eidim Zaymin are causing the husband to be able to sell the rights of those properties of the ksuba, right? Because now the Eidim came and testified that the husband divorced his wife and he didn't pay her the ksuba, so that takes away from the husband his ability to sell those properties that he could have sold to his to any buyer. That's what you estimate. So here, what Rav Chisda is basically saying is the pshat in the Mishnah is when it says in the Mishnah V'imesa Yirashena Baila that if she dies, then the husband will inherit these properties. That's what the Mishnah means to say here. That the fact that the husband sells his rights to these properties to someone, to a buyer, in the event that the woman dies first, and now the buyer will get that. That is what these Eidim Zaymim were testifying to take away from the husband, that ability, that right to sell. That's one shot. Rav Nosson bar Oishia says, B'isha. No, what you estimate is what a woman can sell of her ksuba. Now, what does this mean? So, as Rashi explains, when it says here in the Gemara B'isha, what it means is that we deduct the amount that a woman can sell in a ksuba for her rights to collect a ksuba, and she can sell that to someone. We deduct that amount from the total value of the ksuba. Right? So let's say, as I mentioned before, let's say the total value of the ksuba is $1,000. Ksuba has different parts to it. There's the actual ksuba, there's taisvis ksuba, there's different things that could be in a ksuba. So let's say the total amount of the ksuba is $1,000. If she would want to sell for someone the rights to collect the ksuba, so that person will, let's say, pay $500, $600 for it. That amount you deduct from the ksuba, and then the rest is the loss that the Eidim Zaymin wanted to cause the husband. Why? Why do you deduct that amount? So Rashi says, because the husband as well, he himself would also be ready to pay this amount in order to pater himself of paying his wife the ksuba. If he would die or he would divorce her, he would have to pay the full ksuba. If she would be ready to sell that to him and to take now, instead of maybe paying later the full amount, which is much more, if she would be ready, he would definitely be interested in getting a bargain and buying the rights of this ksuba for $500-$600, and he wouldn't have to pay the ksuba for the wife later. So therefore, that right has to be deducted, because that amount the husband would be ready to pay anyways. But once you deduct that amount, the rest of the payment of the ksuba, that is the loss that the Eidim wanted to cause the husband. That's the pshat that Rav Nosson bar Oishia says. This payment comes out to be more expensive. That's what Rashi says, because the value that the wife could sell the ksuba for is less than the value that the husband can sell the ksuba for. As I said before, because the husband is the one that has the properties that are meshubah to the ksuba in his possession right now. And when he sells that, he can sell it for a pretty high value. The Isha, when she sells her rights to collect the ksuba, she sells it for much less, because she doesn't have it in her possession yet. Okay, so this is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. That Rashi here is very ma'arich. It brings and explains all this barichas. In the end, Rashi brings another pshat, but Rashi refutes the other pshat with a few questions, and Rashi remains with this pshat in the Gemara. Now, Rav Papa adds one detail to the pshat that Rav Nosson bar Oishia says, that B'isha, that you evaluate the amount that the woman could sell the ksuba for, and that's what you deduct from the payment that the Eidim Zaymin have to pay the husband for the loss that they wanted to cause him. But ubiksubasa, you only include in that the loss that they wanted to cause the husband for what's written inside the ksuba. As I mentioned, there's the payment that's written inside the ksuba. That's the usual payment of ksuba, 100 or 200 zuz or taisvis ksuba, and also the nichsei tzayin barzel, that properties of the wife that she brought into the marriage. And but that's what's written into the ksuba. What does he mean to exclude? The nichsei melog, that's not included in the loss that the Eidim wanted to cause the husband. Even though when the Eidim come and testify that the husband did not pay her the ksubeh, he divorced his wife and he didn't pay her yet, they intended to cause, it comes out that they would cause him a loss of the nichse milug as well. Because if he divorced her, now the husband is losing his right to eat from those properties of nichse milug that are not written into the ksubeh. As I mentioned, those properties that the wife brings in, and you don't want to write it into the ksubeh, what happens to those properties? The husband eats from the peiros. And now these Eidim Zayim came and say that the husband divorced, he can't eat those peiros. So that was an additional loss that seemingly they intended to cause. But Rav Papa says these Eidim Zayim could say, no, that wasn't our intention. It wasn't written into the ksubeh, and we didn't know about it. We didn't know about these other properties. That wasn't part of what our false testimony was about, and therefore we're not paying that as part of the Einish of Kashazamam. And the Kashazamam is only what's written inside the ksubeh, which doesn't include the Nichse Melog. Another case of Eidim Zaymim be'idin anu be'ish plini. The Eidim come and testify about this individual, Shu chayv l'chaveiroi elav zuz, that so-and-so owes someone money, and he has to pay him this loan, 1,000 zuz, in 30 days. And now the borrower comes and says that it's true, I owe this money, but mikan vades hashanim, but I only have to pay it in 10 years from now. And it turns out that they're Eidim Zaymin. They said a lie. So now they didn't come to cause this loss of 1,000 zuz to this person, because it's true that he owes the money. But it's just a difference in how long of a time he has to pay it up, 30 days or 10 years. It's a pretty big difference. You can have this money for 10 years. So how do we estimate the damage here? What's the einish of kashazamam, the damage that they wanted to cause him? So then we estimate kama adam reitzelitin. How much would a person be ready to pay? V'yu biyadai elav zuz. And he should have this 1,000 zuz in his hands. Ben noislam mikam vad lamed yain, ben noislam mikam vad esashonim. And whether he would have it for 30 days, or you would lengthen the time he can have borrow this money for 10 years, what fee would a person be ready to pay to be able to keep it for up to almost additional 10 years? That's the damage over here that was caused by this. That this person would have it for 10 years, and the Eidim are coming saying the Eidim Zayman is saying that it's only 30 days. Now, this kind of payment that the Gemara is saying that you estimate this with is actually a payment of ribbis, because you're paying a fee to keep the loan for an extra amount of time. That's what's called aganata. This is mamish, the idea of ribbis. But obviously you're not allowed to pay such a kind of fee. You're not allowed to charge such a kind of fee. It's ribbis. But nevertheless, this is the way you estimate it. This is the value, the market value that it has. It's not saying that b'poil this is something that's allowed to be done. But this is how you estimate the market value of keeping a loan for 10 years instead of 30 days. Okay, so the Gemara begins with halacha and then comes back to our Mishnah. Zok the Gemara Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Hamal be'es chaveiroi le'es shanim. If you lend money to someone for a period of 10 years, shviyis misham tasei. Now, in between the 10 years, there's going to be a shmita. The shmita will absolve the loan. Now, the chiddush here is, although the hashta, when it comes in the 7th year of the shmita, lekarina bei lo yigais. Now, in the shmita, what is the law? The Torah says they don't press the borrower, don't go and collect the money from him during Shemitah, and therefore the loan becomes absolved. But the thing is, during Shemitah, if you don't absolve this loan, and you'll collect it after Shemitah, but during Shemitah, the time of the payment of the loan has not come yet, you're not pressing to pay now. So maybe in such a case, the halacha of absolving the loan would not apply. But nevertheless, soif asi lidela yigais. If you don't allow the Shemitah to absolve the loan now, so then in the end, later on, 3 years later, let's say, you're going to come and ask him for the money, and then it comes out that you're pressing him for a loan that you did not absolve during Shemitah. So the fact that the Shemitah is not absolving it in the end is what leads you to then press him for the payment of the loan. That's included in the law of lo yigais, not only if it's in the year of Shemitah itself. Most of Rav Kahana, on this Rav Kahana asked from our Mishnah. The Mishnah says that in the case of the Eidim Zaymimin, when they said that the loan is for 30 days instead of 10 years, Oimdim, what do we estimate? Kama Adam Reitzelitain, how much would a person, what fee would a person be ready to pay? The difference of whether he could have the loan for 30 days or 10 years. But now, if you're going to say like Rav said, that if it passes to the Shemitah, it absolves the entire loan. So then, kulunami boy shlumile. He should pay the lender the value of this entire loan that he wanted to cause him this loss. Why? Because in such a case, Or sorry, you should pay the borrower, that is. You should pay the borrower the loss of this money. Because if it's 10 years the loan, that means that Shmita is going to be in the middle and it's going to absolve the entire loan. He can keep this money. Now that he says that it's only 30 days, that means that he's going to have to pay the entire loan. So the loss is the value of the entire loan. Rava answers, yes, even though Shmita is Meshamit, but there are cases where the halacha of Shmita does not absolve the loan. On the case here is two options. Either b'mal vala mashkin, when a person lent money, but he took a collateral from the borrower. In such a case, the halacha of lo yigais does not apply, because lo yigais means when you're pressing the borrower to pay. When you have the mashkin in your hand, it's like the payment is in your hand already. So you don't have to press him, you're just holding on to the mashkin. He wants back the mashkin, he wants the collateral back, let him pay me. But you already have that payment. In such a case, Shmita does not absolve the loan. Or another case, when one gives the documents of his loan to the bezdin, that it's the bezdin that is collecting the loan for you and not you. According to Rashi's Pshat, this Meiser Shtareisav LeBezdin is the prusbul. When you give over the loan to the Bezdin, that the Bezdin collects the loan. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Hamal Vala Mashkin, when one lands in a collateral, Va Meiser Shtareisav LeBezdin, or he gives over his documents of the loan to the Bezdin, ain't Mashmitin. Here, Shmita does not absolve the loan, and the reason by both of them is the same point, because it's not the lender that's pressing the borrower to pay. He already got paid, in the case of the mashkin, or it's the bezdin that's collecting the loan. Other Rishonim hold that when it says here this lashon of Meiser Shtareisav LeBezdin, it's not exactly the din of prusbul, because prusbul is a takana midrabanan, and here it's talking about Meiser Shtareisav LeBezdin, which is even min hatayre. Meiser Shtareisav LeBezdin means when you have documents for a loan and you actually give the documents to bezdin. Prusbul is when you just say that to bezdin, you're not actually giving the documents to the bezdin. So that's therefore Rishonim learn that it's a little bit different than a prusbul. It's the same concept. This is all one version of what Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. That even when it's a loan of 10 years, the Shemitah absolves the loan. Another version, Ikadamri, Omer Rav Yehuda Shmuel, Hamalves Chavere Lesa Shana. You lent money to your friend, and he only has to pay after 10 years. In such a case, Ein Shvius Misham Tasai. Shmita will not absolve this loan. V'afagav the osi lidei lo yigais. Even though if the Shmita will not absolve the loan, so then eventually after Shmita he will not come and press him to collect the loan. But hashtemiyah like in the lo yigais during Shmita, you're not being given the lav of lo yigais because the time of the payment is not now during Shmita. So therefore, this is a kind of loan that Shmita will not absolve. Rav Kahana now, according to this version, tried to bring a raya from our Mishnah. I'll bring you a proof of this from what it said in the Mishnah, that by the Eidun Zayimim we estimate what is the difference in what fee would a person be ready to pay to keep the loan for 10 years instead of only 30 days? Now, if you're going to say that Shmita absolves the loan completely, so then you should pay the borrower the entire value of the loan, because Shmita would absolve the entire loan if you could keep it for 10 years. Elamai, from a Mishnah Zaraya, that when it's a loan for 10 years and the time of collection is not during Shmita, it does not absolve the loan. Rav answers that, as we explained before, that our Mishnah, the case would be b'malva ala mashkin, when he lent him with a collateral, or b'meiser shtareisav lebezdin, or a case where he gives over his shtaris to the bezdin. That's not a malva ala mashkin, b'meiser shtareisav lebezdin, ein mashmitin, as we explained before. Okay, so now here the Gemara is going to bring all the statements that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. So the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Shmuel, a person that says to his friend, al menas shaloi tashmiteni shvius. I'm lending you money, but on condition that Shmita should not absolve the loan. Doesn't matter. Shvius mishat metes. The Shmita will absolve the loan anyways. You can't make this kind of condition that it should not absolve the loan. So the Gemara asks on this, Leime, shall we say, Kasav Shmuel, that Shmuel holds, Masna al Masha Kasav Batayruhu, that because he's making a condition against what it says in the Torah, and V'chol Masna al Masha Kasav Batayruhu, anytime you're making a condition against the halacha that the Torah says, Tanai Batal, your Tanai will be worthless. Okay, now what the Gemara here is discussing is specifically this kind of condition. This is a condition against what the Torah says regarding a money matter. Right? Obviously, regarding a condition that a person makes against what it says in the Torah, Isra, a mitzvah, a person can't make such a kind of condition. But the question is, how about regarding a money matter? In a money matter, one could be meichel to another. If I owe someone money and the malva is meichel, by money you could always be meichel. So by money matters, even if there's a t'nai in the Torah that the loan gets absolved, but what's if the loive is meichel and says, I know this loan is absolved, but I agree to your condition that I'm going to pay you anyways. So by money matter, there's a svara to say that a person has the ability and the rights to that he shall pay anyways. So the Gemara asks, that's the point that the Gemara is asking you. But v'ha itmar, we learned that he says to his friend that I'm selling you this property on the condition that there's no eino, or this object I'm selling you, and the condition is that there will be no issue of eino, that I overcharged you, and the sale is whatever it is. So Rav says, yesh loy olav eino, that even if you make this condition, the condition doesn't help, and the halachas of eino that it says in the title, Eseinu Ishus HaMisai, still applies, even though it's a money matter. Shmuel Aimer, however, Shmuel says, Ein lo olav eino, because it's a money matter, so therefore the halachas of eino does not apply in this case. So if so, the Gemara is asking over here as well, regarding borrowing money, when the loive says, the borrower says, I'll pay you even though Shemitah passes, but I'm going to pay you anyways. So since it's a money matter, just like by the din of eino, the condition helps. So over here as well, the condition should help that the loive should have to pay. So the Gemara explains it's true, but it actually depends on the precise language that was used here when he made this condition that the Shemitah should not take effect. Or the same by eino as well, that the halacha of eino should not take effect. Because itmar Allah, we learned regarding what Shmuel said, Amar Rav Ana. Rav Ana said, it was explained to me from Shmuel himself, that it depends what he said. If he said, Al menas she'en locha alai eino, that the condition here is that on me, you have no complaints regarding being deceived over here in this sale.
Price fraud.
And what again?
Price fraud.
Price fraud, yeah, great. That there's no price fraud over here in this sale on me. He said, then there'll be no complaints about any price fraud, about any That's because he said a lie. But if he says, he says that I'm selling you on the condition that there is no eino in it, that there's no eino in this sale, then that kind of condition doesn't help, because the fact is he overcharged him, and there is a price fraud over here. So you said there is no eino in it, then it's not, that condition is not true. So Hachanami here as well, if he said, so if he says, on condition that you will not be mashmit the loan for me, meaning we're not going to absolve this loan for me in Shemitah, then en shvius misham tasai. That's a condition that takes effect regarding a money matter, that the Shemitah will not absolve the loan. But if the person did not say bishvius, but he said, on condition that Shemitah will not absolve, then shvius misham tasei, then the Shemitah will absolve the loan, because the Shemitah, you can't change the halacha of the Torah. You can't say al manas that this will not happen. It does. Shemitah does absolve the loan, and therefore the condition with this expression will not help. Another thing in connection to this Tana, we learned in Abraisa. Hamalvas chaveris tam. Person lends his friend money and they don't make up a time by when he has to pay him. So the lender may not collect the money before 30 days. Now, so Rabbi Bachana thought when he was in front of Rav to explain this, when is this true? When you lend someone money with a document. The loy of it inish, because it's not common for a person, the torach, the cost of shtar, that he's going to lend money and he's going to write a shtar for this to collect his loan, botzer mitlasen yaimen, if it's not a loan that's less than 30 days. So the fact that you're writing a shtar is what reveals the intent of the lender that he's lending it for 30 days. So this is based on the das b'nei yodam that we know it's 30 days. But if it's just a loan without any document written, so then this limitation of 30 days does not apply. He can come and collect the loan even before then. Rav responded to Rabbi Bachana and said, Hachi Omar Chavivi. This is what Chavivi, my uncle, said, which is Rav Chia, whether you lend with a document, whether it's a milva peh without, it's either way, the same halacha applies. The malva cannot collect before 30 days. Tanya Nami Hachi, it says this also in a Braisa, Hamalvus Chaveri Stam, you lend money without making a set time when he collects. He can't come and collect this before 30 days. And that's whether with a document or whether just balpeh without a document. So now, what's the source for this? So till here, the Gemara understood that this is based on das b'nei Adam, that a person that's writing a document wouldn't go through this hassle of writing a document unless he means that the loan should be serious, that it should be at least 30 days. But now, if there's no difference with a shtar, with alpeh, so the Gemara now will bring another source actually from a pasuk for this, and it's not based on das b'nei Adam. It's based on a pasuk. That's how many Mefarshim learn that. So Amalei Shmuel Rav Masna, Shmuel says to Rav Masna, Loi Teisev Akarech, don't sit down on your knees, Adam Mefarshesli, Ulahashmaita, until you explain me this halacha. Minaha Milsad Amar Rabbana, what is the source for this that the Chachamim said, that Amal V'Chaveri Stam, that when a person lends money without setting a time, then he can't collect before 30 days. And that's Echad Amal V'Bishtar, Echad Amal V'Alpeh, whether with a document or even without. Amalei, so Rav Masna answered the Chsiv, because in the pasuk by Shemitah it says, Korva Shnasa Sheva, the 7th year of Shemitah is coming, and then it adds Shnasa Shemitah, and then the pasuk goes on to say that in the year of Shemitah, Shnasa Sheva, Shnasa Shemitah, V'ro Eincha B'chicha Evyan. Okay, so now the pasuk here uses a double expression. When it says that it's coming close to 7th year, so any day Shnasa do I not know that the 7th year is the year of Shemitah? Why does it say separately again? Elamat Tamad Loima Shnasa Shemitah. So it's saying Shnasa Shemitah to teach you that Yesh Shemitah Acheres Shehikazu. There is another halacha of Shemitah. It's similar to Shemitah that you may not collect the loan, it absolves the loan. There's another halacha that's similar to this, that there's a time period where you can't collect the loan. The Eizuzu, and which time period is this? Hamalves Chavere Stam, when one lends his friend money and he doesn't make up a time. You can't collect for less than 30 days. And that's considered to be this other time period of a year that's similar to Shemitah. Now, why 30 days? Why shouldn't we say that it should be, maybe a stam milva should be a whole year and not 30 days? So the Gemara explains the reason why we say 30 days is what it means here when it says a year. Because the master has said in another halacha, Shloishim Yom B'Shana, Choshev Shana. 30 days in a year could be considered to be like a year. Regarding what halacha was this said, regarding the tree, regarding an arla tree. When you plant a tree, so for 3 years you can't use the tree. What's considered to be a year? Rosh Hashanah is considered to be Rosh Hashanah is a Rosh Hashanah for this halacha, for the arla. Now, if one planted the tree 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, that counts already for a full year for this tree, and then from Rosh Hashanah you start counting a second year. So we see that 30 days of the year regarding one halacha can be considered to be a full year, and therefore the drash over here that there's a shana acheres that has the halacha like Shemitah that you can't collect the loan. What is that shana acheres? Not a full year, but it's just 30 days. And this is the source that you can't collect a loan within 30 days. Okay. In the simple pshat of the Gemara, it's saying this is a real drasha, this is a real makar min ha-Torah. Some say, though, that this is only an asmachta. It's not mamish halacha min ha-Torah. The Chachamim instituted this, but it's an asmachta from the pasuk. Okay, let's learn one more halacha here. The Gemara here is going to bring up other subjects which are not really related to what we're talking about, but it's all things that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, and that Rav Kahana asked the question on it. Similar to before, that Rav Kahana was the one that asked the question. Rav Yehuda said a halacha in the name of Rav. One that had a garment, but the middle of the garment for the opening, for the person to put his head inside and to wear it, was not open, and he opens up this garment on Shabbos. Chayev chatas. He's doing a malacha and he's chayev chatas because he's creating now the garment, he's completing the garment to be able to wear it, and this is makeh b'patish, like the finishing touch that he should be able to wear this garment. So he's chayev chatas. This is Rashi's pshat here is that it's a piece of garment that had no hole in the center, and the person cut out that hole in the center for him to be able to wear it. According to Taisvis, it's talking about a garment. Taisvis is not over here, but it's in another place. Taisvis says that the garment is a garment that had a hole in the center, but then it was sewed closed, and he opens up that closing that it was sewed closed. So he'll be chayav chatas because that's makeh b'patish. So, or maybe that according to Taisus, I don't know if it's makeh b'patish, maybe that he untied it's kaireya, could be. But that Taisus holds that it's not mamish talking about cutting out an opening, but it was sewed closed. Maskefla Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana asks on this. V'chima bein zeh. What's the distinction between this case of opening up the hole in the garment l'megufas chavis to a barrel that is sealed, closed with a cover, and it's sealed well with cement or with clay, and one opens this up on Shabbos, that he's not going to be chayiv chatas for this. Amalei, so Rav answered, Zeh chibur v'zeh ein chibur. In the case of the garment, according to Rashi's pshat, it's one garment, and the person is cutting it open. That's mamish making a new opening of one garment. That's makiv patish. But in the case of the barrel, that a person is removing the cover, even if it's a cover that was very well attached, and he's moving it, and even if he's making the opening a little bigger than it was before, but it's not wasn't one thing. It's not mechuber. He's just removing the cap that was there on the top of it. And even according to Tosfos' pshat, in the case where the middle of the garment was sealed closed, it was sewed closed, so that's something that's sewed closed permanently. When the person goes and opens it, he's tearing open something that was closed permanently. When it comes to a barrel and the cover on a barrel, even if it's sealed closed, it's made l'chatchila with the intention to open. It was only a temporary closing. So because it's made l'chatchila to open, so therefore ein chibur. You're not going to be chayiv opening this up. This Gemara is the source for the barrels, not only barrels, the bottles and the caps here. This kind of cap, when you open it up on Shabbos, even though it cuts off from that ring, from the plastic ring on it, you're allowed to open it on Shabbos because they're in a chibur. It's not a chibur that's made permanently. It's made l'chatchila to remove from it, and you're not making a new keli, it's not called makeh b'patish. It's just an added thing that's placed on temporarily to remove.